During VFR flight, you control the airplane's attitude and flight path by combining a general view of the horizon and what you see outside your airplane with a cross-check of the flight instruments for specific information. During instrument flight, you rely completely on the flight instruments to provide all the necessary information. Now the Earth's horizon and your outside visual references are replaced by the attitude indicator, which gives you information regarding pitch and bank. Never intentionally fly into IFR conditions without first obtaining an instrument rating. However, developing your instrument flying skills will help you cope with an inadvertent encounter with IFR conditions. As you learn to control an airplane solely by instruments, you'll develop more confidence and increase your skills in instrument interpretation and precision control. One of the first skills you need to develop is a systematic method of looking at each flight instrument. This skill is called scanning. The instruments included in your scan are the attitude indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator or VSI, heading indicator, turn coordinator, and the airspeed indicator. During your training, you will learn not to fixate or stare at one particular instrument, nor place too much emphasis on one indication. You will also discover that you cannot omit any instrument from the total scan. For example, if you're trying to maintain directional control by staring at the heading indicator and omit the other instruments, you might place yourself in a critical flight attitude. You can see that it's important to scan all of the instruments. Let's look at how to maintain straight and level flight by instrument reference. The objective is to fly a predetermined heading at a specified altitude. To help maintain the desired altitude, use the attitude indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, and airspeed indicator. A constant power setting helps to simplify maintaining your altitude. The attitude indicator gives a direct indication of your general pitch attitude. Any changes in pitch, whether up or down, will be detected by the attitude indicator. The altimeter tells you whether you're at the desired altitude or moving away from it. For example, if your altitude begins to increase due to an inadvertent pitch change or a vertical air current, the altimeter indicates the change. But the altimeter is not the only instrument that tells you the altitude is changing. The vertical speed indicator also helps detect movement from the planned altitude. The VSI instantly indicates the trend of any altitude displacement. The actual rate of climb or descent, however, may take a little longer to register. Another instrument that indicates a change in altitude is the airspeed indicator. Once you've established a constant power setting, airspeed fluctuations signify pitch changes that will result in altitude variations. For example, if pitch increases, the airspeed begins to decrease. If airspeed increases, pitch has decreased and you will lose altitude. When you notice a change in altitude, you'll need to correct the pitch attitude to return to the original altitude. You should make corrections by referring to the attitude indicator and monitoring the altimeter to complete the adjustment back to level flight. As a general rule, if the altitude deviation is less than 100 feet, you should correct the pitch attitude without changing power. When the deviation is greater than 100 feet, you should combine a pitch change with an appropriate power adjustment. Let's look now at the other half of straight and level flight, maintaining a constant heading. The instruments used for bank control are the attitude indicator, heading indicator, and turn coordinator. The attitude indicator instantly shows any change in bank and gives a general picture of bank attitude. If you bank to the left or to the right, you get a direct indication of the movement on the attitude indicator. During coordinated flight, a turn is also shown on the heading indicator. Generally, if the heading remains constant, the wings are level. A shallow bank is shown by a slow heading change, while a rapid change signifies a steeper bank. Another instrument which provides an indirect indication of a bank is the turn coordinator. Your heading will remain constant when the wings of the miniature airplane are level and the ball is centered. You will be in a bank and subsequent turn when the wings of the miniature airplane roll to either side. With an understanding of how straight and level flight is performed, let's look at how climbs are made by instrument reference. To enter a climb from cruise airspeed, you need to raise the nose of the airplane. Monitor the attitude indicator as you increase the pitch attitude above the horizon reference line. You must also increase power to sustain the climb. Do this either simultaneously with the pitch change or after the pitch has been established and the airspeed approaches the desired climb speed. When the airspeed stabilizes, trim the airplane. During a stabilized climb, any change in airspeed signifies that the pitch attitude has changed. To correct the pitch, use the attitude indicator. Your actual rate of climb depends on the density altitude, power setting, and aircraft weight. But the VSI can provide an indirect indication of pitch changes when it increases or decreases. In a climb, you maintain directional control the same as in straight and level flight, with one exception. The ball in the turn coordinator is scanned to ensure that you are applying enough right rudder pressure. The level off from an instrument climb is performed the same as with outside visual references. As you approach your desired altitude, begin the level off by leading the altitude by 10% of the vertical speed. For example, if you are climbing at 500 feet per minute, lead the level off altitude by 50 feet. To level off, apply smooth, controlled pressure until the miniature airplane on the attitude indicator is aligned with the horizon reference line. As you establish a level flight attitude, the vertical speed indicator will move slowly toward zero. The altimeter needle will slow its upward movement, and the airspeed indicator will move toward cruise airspeed. To complete the transition from climb to cruise, relax the right rudder pressure you held during the climb to maintain the planned heading, reduce power to cruise, and trim the airplane. With the airplane established back at straight and level, let's go ahead and look at how to descend by instrument reference. To enter a constant airspeed descent, establish the desired airspeed by reducing power to the predetermined setting and maintain altitude. As you reach the desired airspeed, lower the pitch to maintain the airspeed and trim for the descent. Correct any deviation in airspeed by adjusting the pitch attitude. Use the bank control instruments to maintain directional control during the descent. As you approach your planned altitude, begin the level off by leading the altitude by about 10% of the vertical speed. Raise the pitch attitude to level flight. Then increase the power while maintaining directional control. When stabilized in cruise, retrim the airplane. The next maneuver we'll look at is performing a turn. All turns by instrument reference are made at a standard rate of 3 degrees per second. When the miniature airplane in the turn coordinator is aligned with the reference mark, you are in a standard rate turn. To enter a turn, establish a bank by referring to the attitude indicator. As you become familiar with your airplane, you'll learn the angle of bank that produces the standard rate turn at a given true airspeed. As the turn is established, you'll need to raise the nose slightly to offset the loss of vertical lift during the bank. Then, check the turn coordinator to ensure you are in a coordinated, standard rate turn. If the turn is not standard, make a slight bank adjustment on the attitude indicator and confirm the change on the turn coordinator. The altimeter and the vertical speed indicator must be included in your scan to assure that the altitude is being maintained. During the turn, monitor the heading indicator to determine the progress toward the desired heading. To allow for the rollout, lead the heading by the number of degrees equal to 1/2 of the bank angle. For example, if you are in a 15-degree bank, start the rollout about 8 degrees before the desired heading. As you return to wings level, release the back pressure held during the turn and continue your instrument scan. Part of your attitude instrument training will include recognition of and recovery from unusual or critical flight attitudes. Your instructor will have you close your eyes and let go of the controls. The airplane will be maneuvered to simulate an unusual attitude that could result from turbulence, preoccupation with cabin duties, disorientation, or erroneous instrument interpretation. When you're instructed to take the controls, you need to evaluate the situation immediately and make a proper recovery. For example, the approach to a climbing stall is signified by a high-pitch attitude and decreasing airspeed. This situation requires you to lower the nose toward level flight while immediately adding full power and leveling the wings. Conversely, if the pitch attitude is low and the airspeed increasing, you'll need to reduce power to prevent excessive airspeed, adjust the wings to level, and then raise the pitch to a straight and level flight attitude. Your initial training in attitude instrument flying does not qualify you to fly in IFR conditions without an instrument rating. However, it does provide you with basic emergency skills if you inadvertently lose outside visual references. It also helps you interpret the instruments more effectively during VFR conditions.